Hello, LinkedIn. I was just talking about how my top clashes with the orange. I'm not, and that actually. So I think I better just stand here. Hello, everyone. Welcome to LinkedIn Live. And today I am very excited because I am. Hello, Vanessa. You see, that's interesting, Malin, because it normally takes about a minute or two for it to start filtering in, but clearly it's not. We're on live and we're live. So you can actually comment to us and chat with us or chat amongst yourselves through the comments box on this LinkedIn Live. Do what you like, but yeah, be nice. So I'm here with Malin today, Malin Liden. Do you want to introduce yourself, Malin? Be better than me.
I am happy to. My name is Malin Liden. I work for SAP since the beginning of times, I would say. I'm a bit of a dinosaur at SAP. I've been here for almost 20 years, but that's how much I'm enjoying it. And I have the privilege to be responsible for transformation, which can be anything and everything. And that's also why it makes it so interesting. So I've been privileged enough and lucky enough to be able to incubate a lot of new things at SAP, new ways of communicating with our audiences, new ways of doing things, innovating, incubating, and making sure that we create the best practices of tomorrow. So I think our paths crossed, Sarah, when in and around the social selling space. And I am a little bit of a social media addict. So I guess that is where our connection comes from. And I've always been fascinated by how social media can break down silos, how it can create connections, how you can build thought leadership, how you can build your brand. So I'm super excited to be here to talk to you today about anything and everything in and around social media, employee advocacy, social selling, community, wherever you like to take it.
And hello to everyone. They're all waving. Hello, well, they're not waving. They're just putting a comment in. Hello, everyone. Hi, Lucy. Lucy works for our SAP partner. So, Michael, you're right, Michael. Lisbeth, you're probably, I've just jumped off a call from Lisbeth and she's thinking you weren't wearing that top. No, I wasn't, Lisbeth. I just got changed very quickly. So hello, everyone. So pop your, and Dazzler in New York. So it must be early for you. Pop your comments in there. Today's topic that I'm going to talk to you about, Malin. And I'm trying to work out, did we actually ever work together? Or did we just have the same passions in SAP? Because we were both at SAP at the same time. So.
Yeah, I think more the latter, actually. It was never a really formal collaboration. It was more like, a shared passion, I would say.
I love this topic. So we are focusing on today around change management. And I've got 3 stickies in front of me. I'm going to show you guys because I'm like, right, these are the topics: change management, advocacy, culture, and the connection between the 3. Right, I'm going to stick them up there because I do honestly believe that change management, culture, and advocacy are connected. Can you tell me your thoughts on that before I start digging into how it's connected and how you measure impact and why things go wrong? What are your thoughts about culture, advocacy, and change management?
Absolutely. So I think that employee advocacy, to be done right, it depends on a positive culture. So if you will, you can think of employee advocacy as the shop window to your company's culture. It becomes very visible what type of a culture you have. If you have a positive culture that will support employee advocacy, you have openness in your culture, you have a culture that embraces the diversity in opinions and voices, that look at it as an advantage if you have more people chiming in, more people joining the discussion. And you also have a culture of empowerment, because employee advocacy done right takes a little bit of courage. You have to allow the diversity of voices. You have to allow things that are maybe not polished the way you would have polished it in a top-down sort of media training type of way. You are allowing authentic voices. And some of them will be closer to how you would have said things yourself, and some of them will be a little bit further away from it. But in the sum, all of it coming together is really giving color to your company's or your organization's story. And that takes a little bit of courage. It takes courage. It takes an open culture. So I look at it that way. The employee advocacy is the shop window to your company's culture. If it's looking good, then you have a positive culture. If you don't have a positive culture, more of a strict way of doing things, more top-down, more enforcement, it will be much harder to do employee advocacy the right way, which is then where change management comes into place. Your change management practices will have to be really good because you will have a longer way to go.
So that's an interesting one, Malin, there. There's a couple of things there.
Mm-hmm.
Some leaders might not be comfortable with letting their authentic employee voices get out there for
Mm-hmm.
mistakes that might be made. And I'm thinking also in the financial industry where you've got, one word can be the difference between a financial promotion and not. So tell me a little bit about that. How do you encourage leaders to say, do you know what, you just got to let go of social, you've got to let your employees.
You know what? I think it's as simple as you have no choice. This is at least what I tell people. People are on social, and I describe it this way. I like to talk in pictures. If you want to be on the safe side, you're trying to prevent anything that isn't exactly how you would have said it. You want to control everything. It's like trying to push a wave back with your hands. It's very difficult. The water goes through your hands. You get very wet, and you are not going to be successful because you cannot stop a wave of water with your hands. Instead, if you're a clever leader, you turn around, you ride on the wave, you accept the fact that sometimes some of these surfers on the wave who are enjoying the thrill, they might fall, but they will get up again better. So this is how I try to convey the message. People are on social media. They are talking about things. You can't stop it. So rather invest in a positive culture, in teaching people how to do it the right way, because it is a lot about judgment. You can put some checklists together, but you can never cover all of the scenarios. So it's really, again, the more you surf on the wave, the better you will get. The more sophisticated your radar will be to detect where is a place that I should stay away from, where is a safe place, what can I say, what can I not say. But you will have mistakes here and there. But I'm an economist, by the way, by training. I studied economics, so I look at the balance sheet. And for me, the positive side on the balance sheet is much bigger than the negative side on the balance sheet. So even if you have a little bit of damage here and there, then the positive effects will be so much bigger if you embrace it, if you support it, and if you invest.
And I think that's a good point there, actually, to communicate to leaders that this is actually, you've got to embrace this. I always say that, people might not be on social. You may have it locked down. And believe me, some companies still have it locked down in their organizations. You've not to go on social in the day, only official spokespeople. But actually, they're on their phones in the Starbucks queue, right? They're on social. Whether you like it or not. So you might as well embrace it and do something with it.
Absolutely.
Hello, Amy. Thanks for joining. Currently working on implementing a new change management process in central business. So let's talk a little bit about change management. Mm-hmm. There's something you said about, culture and its impact on advocacy. And, if you haven't got a good culture, then it might not be the right time. I don't want to put words in your mouth. Might it not be the right time to have an advocacy program? Should you sort culture out first? Will advocacy sort your culture out?
No, I don't think advocacy will sort out the culture. I actually think you do need to invest first, because otherwise it's also going to be very uncomfortable for the individuals. I don't only see fear from organizations. I also see fear from individuals. A lot of people are afraid. I've been trying to encourage, as you know, a lot of sellers to become more social. And many of them are like, but I don't know what to say. If I say the wrong things, I might be fired, I might lose my job. And they paint this picture of horror, all the things that could happen if they do the wrong thing. So if you start from that place, and this is in an open culture, many of these people worked at SAP where we have a very positive culture, but people are afraid to do something wrong. You don't want to cause any trouble, regardless of how positive your culture is. So I really think that if you have a culture that is very controlling, it's very top down, it will be more difficult and it will put people in a more uncomfortable position. If you push them to do social and there is a culture of controlling, you're uncertain, or the other thing that can happen is that your employee advocacy program will be what I'm sure you are also seeing, and it always feels like a shame for me, where you encourage the employees to become spammers. You give them things that are pre-approved and asking everybody to share the same thing, and it becomes horrible because your network will get it 300 times, and it's the same corporate article that no one wanted to read in the first place. So I really do think that you need to start with the groundwork, and I actually believe that this is also why we are seeing a little bit of lag in employee advocacy. I've been talking about it for years, and I know you have too. I haven't seen a whole lot of really great examples because it seems much easier than it is, because there are some foundational things that you have to tackle first, and those foundational things are many times connected with culture, and changing culture takes time. It's not a quick fix.
Yeah, you reminded me of something there. Excuse me, I'm having a bit of a cough. You reminded me of something there, Malin, actually, when I worked at SAP, and it was years ago, and SAP's program has matured since then, so it's not doing this. But I do remember logging on to LinkedIn and seeing 47 𝐥𝐞𝐚𝐫𝐧 posts in my LinkedIn. And I remember thinking, this is advocacy gone wrong. It doesn't, that was years ago, right? So, I mean, SAP's been doing this for a long time, and they've learned from it, and they know how they're doing things now. And I would say, actually, SAP is one of the most mature companies now at embracing the diversity on social and encouraging employees to have their voice and go out. Now, I've written something down that you mentioned here. And I've seen your comment, Amy. Thank you for that, about the program that you did last year. Social selling, brand ambassador, finally achieved senior leadership buy-in after presenting back the ROI and showing it as a value-added tool rather than, just a nice to have. So thank you for that. It's good. I've wrote down here, afraid. Employees are afraid. And I think herein becomes the change management side of things, because this is where... and I'm going to ask a bit of a difficult question here, because I think a lot of organizations will implement a tool and think that that's it. We'll do a training webinar on how to use the tool. And then they quickly realize maybe adoption slows, engagement rates go down, shares go down. So talk to me about, how you get employees over this I'm afraid hump, and the change management process behind that.
Okay, so I think in very simplistic ways sometimes. And for me, change management is only about creating moments of success. You can easily force people to do something, or maybe not easily, but if you threaten, you will lose your job, or you will not achieve your bonus if you don't blog, then people will write the blog and it will be really crappy because you're forced and you're afraid and you don't like it. Maybe you're not a writer or whatever. So if you want someone to do something again in a sustainable way, they have to find some joy in it and some reward in it. If people enjoy what they are doing, they will do it again, and they will do it much better. So what you do is you train people to do what you want them to do, and you push them a little bit. Sometimes it's important to get people over the first threshold to just dare to do it once. But you need to be there with your tools, with your coaching, with your culture, with everything you have as an organization, to make sure that once they dare to take the step, it's going to be successful. Because if they feel the success, if they feel like, wow, this was rewarding, I got something back, people commented, I met someone new, I made a new connection, they will do it again. You will never have to convince them to do it again if you create a moment of success.
Yeah, you feel the success, then that's the key bit.
Feel the success.
And Amy, to your point, one bit of the experience that I've had working with several executives trying to get them active on social is the moment they post, and it might be the first time that they've posted, everyone's engaging with it. Their employees were waiting for it. And that's when they feel it and they go, okay.
This
now
is great.
I kind of get it. I get why I'm doing this. Hello, Michael. I love your questions. Right, let's have a look. How do we make sure to get uptake from all employees on words like workplace culture, change management, and now employee advocacy? Can it be translated into something more appetizing? Oh, I think people are getting tired of the phrase employee advocacy, aren't they? And it means different things to different people. Yeah, go on. That's a good one. How do we make sure we get uptake from all employees on things like workplace culture, change management, employee advocacy? Do employees really understand that phrase? Those phrases? Do they need to?
I don't know. I think employee advocacy is a bit of an inside-out term. Yeah, it's written, or it sounds like something that the company wants me to do for the company. If you turn it around, employee advocacy can be incredibly rewarding. I would say that a lot of my career success has depended on, actually I was chatting with Stefano before we started this call and was asking me, I'm here to do, in the location where I am today, I'm here to do a speaking engagement, and I'm getting these speaking engagements because of what I do on social. This is how you put an opinion out there. This is how you share with the world what you're passionate about. And the interesting thing that happens when it's like when you go on a stage, you go to an event, and if you're like me, I'm not someone who goes to an event and all of a sudden I know everybody in the entire room. That would be more you, Sarah, I think. I'm not. I'm standing in the corner waiting for someone to approach me. But if you go on a stage, then what happens is you put your opinion out there, you share what you're passionate about, and people will come to you. You become a magnet for something that you're passionate about, and people who have a shared passion, they will approach you, and you will start to build a circle of influence and a circle of exchange that is really positive. Because otherwise I would have to go out and find the people who are passionate about the same topic as I do. If I put an opinion out there on a stage, on social, anywhere, then it attracts people who want to discuss the same things. And if you explain it that way, if you don't talk about employee advocacy as a way of employees tooting the horn of the company, but rather building their own individual thought leadership around topics that are also relevant for the company, then it's a different light. It's a different motivation for people to participate.
And I think that's a good point, actually, because employee advocacy as a phrase does, in the industry, it's fine, right? We all understand what it means and what we're talking about. Well, most of us do. But then actually, employees, do they need to understand that? And quite a big mistake I find, Michael, and you'll probably see this as well, is people launch an employee advocacy program and employees are like, well, why would I want to do that? But if you talk about it in their language, we want you to become influential around your topic of interest, then it holds weight. And actually, to your point, Malin, different people, and this is something we talk about a lot, personas within the organization, but different people have different motivations. Lee, hello, Lee. I was going to just mention you. I am going to mention you.
You know everybody in the audience, Sarah.
I know. It's a bit worrying, isn't it? I paid them, Malin. We're getting your coffee vouchers after. Thank you very much. What was I going to say? Shoshana from Intel. I was speaking to her a few weeks ago on a LinkedIn Live with Analytica because we love doing work with them. And she was saying, employee advocacy, I don't like that. Do you know what they call it? Employee development. They call it employee learning and development. We're going to help you build your brand in the marketplace. That's all we're interested in. What are you interested in? And the reason I was going to mention you, Lee, and I haven't read your comment yet, but thank you for joining, was that you're brilliant at explaining what your brand is about, and compartments of what you care about. My passions within Microsoft, my passions outside, digitally disconnecting, workplace. So I think, going back to your question, Michael, using phrases within the industry, we kind of all understand it, but should we be using those phrases to employees? We should think about the audiences, the personas within the company. Leaders are motivated by different things. Employees are motivated depending on whether they're in a finance job, an HR job. Salespeople are motivated in a different way to be on social. So, map the language to the people that you're talking to in your company. So,
and I think there is another thing that is also near and dear to my heart, because it was also, I think it was in the question, how do we get everybody on board? I am not sure if we need everybody on board, or at least I would at least argue to create a very low threshold for participating. I always argue that if you say something to people about, you should use social media more, then they think, I have to be a blogger. I'm not sure if I can blog. You don't have to be a blogger to be on social media. So I always say to people, and I still to this day, no one has proven me wrong, I'm telling everyone, I argue that everyone can find value in social media, because it comes in different sizes and shapes. So the threshold for me is so low that if you start with just doing social listening, then you're participating in social. And even on an employee advocacy program, you can encourage people to do social listening on certain topics of interest for the corporation. This is risk-free. If you're doing social listening, nothing can go wrong. You can never lose your job over social listening. But what it does is it gets you into the conversations. And what I find, if you start doing social listening in and around topics that you're passionate about, you will not be able to resist. You will see conversation like, I have something to say, I want to participate. And then you start to comment, you start to connect with people, and maybe you start in a smaller circle. Maybe you start with joining a smaller group on LinkedIn or having private conversations with people that you notice once you're starting to do social listening. And then you feel safer and safer. You feel more and more comfortable. People invite you to places like your call today. You know everybody on this call. Then you start going to environments where you know more people and you feel a bit more comfortable to participate. So I always advise people who want to launch programs like this is don't try to boil the ocean at once. Try to introduce steps of engagement where people can start in a very non-threatening way and start to again create those moments of success where people are like, this is not, I feel good, I'm learning things, I'm participating, and it feels good for me, versus trying to paint this picture of this is what you do as an employee advocate that might be for someone who has done it for 20 years and has a lot of confidence, is maybe another personality. Find different ways, shapes, and forms for people to participate and be able to start at a level that feels okay for you.
Yeah, and a couple of points there. So Keith Lewis from Zurich explained this very well to me, actually. He uses, they use an enterprise social network internally. I think they use Facebook at work. And he encourages employees to engage internally on social. You know, most large organizations will have an internal social network. Get them to work there. It's a safe zone, right? It's only in front of each other. And then that's a good first step, and recognizing the maturity of employees over time. They need to take baby steps. You're not going to write a 2,000 word blog post when you've never even shared anything on LinkedIn. So, you know, and another point, what is that with me today? I'm losing my voice. Another good point is, you know, not getting everybody on social. Not everybody's going to be on social. And I've actually, even like the Googles of the world, I've only ever seen 40% of their employees active on social. So don't ever expect your entire business to be on social, because it just won't happen. It's
exactly
a dream.
That's what I think. Yeah.
I love that though, Lee, that they call it the Ambassador Community Program in Microsoft. Nice. That's nice. So it's not the advocacy program, not the social selling program. It's about individual ambassadors. So love that. Oh, 𝐷𝐸𝐬 said definition of employee advocacy is employees advocating on behalf of themselves or each other. That's where employee generated content comes in, 𝐷𝐸𝐬. I love all that. We're not going to touch on that today. Oh, hello, Ariana. Oh, now, Lucy, your little comment prompted something for me. So Lucy said, I'm a social lead for a group of companies and I realize I can't do everything myself. So I'm going to come back to the change management part of this conversation. How do you scale change management across? You can't, one person, and I know a lot of companies like this. How do you start to scale change management and social culture across a business? Can you share what you do at SAP, Malin?
Yep. No, I think what we did very successfully at SAP is to spot and identify the brave ones, the early adopters. You will always have some people who are either early adopters or who you can tell that they are active on social. They might not know much about social selling or employee advocacy, but they are social savvy or they have an interest. But people who you can tell are eager or who are already doing it naturally or are early adopters, you spot them and you make them your change management allies. And what we did also at SAP is to create a network of, you can call them ambassadors or trainers or people who are just passionate about the topic. And you will love this, Sarah. You connect them to a community. So you tie people together, have a shared passion, all of them. What is it that is motivating them? If you're an early adopter, then you're in a space where no one has all the answers. You're creating things yourself. You're an early adopter. You're learning yourself. So your biggest motivation is to also learn from other early adopters. So there is a huge value in connecting them for their own benefit. But then you also use this group to inspire others. You shine the spotlight on them so that they are looking good as early adopters, because it takes courage, again, to be the early adopter. So you shine the light on them. You make a big deal out of their advocacy, what they are doing, showing the organization that this is the right thing, this is encouraged, this is a good thing that they are doing. And then you leverage them to also educate others who are interested. And then you can also segment this audience. There are some that might be willing to be showcases, to share their best practices. And then there are others that might be in a separate area of the community that are really hands-on, that you can even rely on. We're back. I lost you for a moment. Can you hear me?
Don't
Yeah.
go. Yes,
Okay,
I'm
great.
here. Yep.
And then you can use them as coaches to actually support people in. Are we back again?
I'm still here. Yep.
You're
I
still
can
there.
hear.
Okay, perfect. I saw a black screen for a moment, so I got a little scared.
Don't worry.
Yeah.
I can still hear you.
Yeah, so then you can take parts of this group and use some of them as really hands-on coaches. So you can also create a community of these early adopters who are willing to be hands-on and help their, not just educate and do training sessions and share the best practices, but perhaps also be coaches for others. And I found that valuable in getting over that threshold of fear, creating the moment of success. If you have coaches that are willing to maybe check something, if you're writing your first tweet, you're writing your first blog, that you have someone that you can reach out to in a coaching network, you can look over your shoulder a little bit and make sure that this is fine and that it's going to be successful. Maybe some tips on how to make it better so that your moment of success becomes even more bright, which means people will do it again.
Yeah. And actually that reminds me of your comment, Michael, about, sometimes the success comes when they find they own their why. Why am I doing this? How does this fit into my job? Why would I spend time on this? You're absolutely right. But the fear comes when they have to hit the share button. Sometimes they just need to do it. I see this with leaders a lot. They just won't share and they just freeze and they just can't share anything. But the moment they do is when they realize they had thousands of employees waiting to hear from them. And that's the moment when it suddenly comes. Now, you touched on a couple of things here. I'm not getting through any of my questions here. Estefano, I know you're in the back. I'm sorry. But I'm just going with the conversation. You talked about people learn from others. They learn from social. I think that is a big missing trick here, that people do not understand the value of learning. Now, so I'm going back to what we're talking about, culture. Do you think advocacy plays well to organizations that embrace a growth mindset culture? Do you think that's...
Definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Because, I do wonder, organizations do not see social as a place for learning, yet in all the interviews that we do and the research that we've done, most organizations, employees love social because they learn from their peers, from what they share, what their network's sharing. I mean, I'm always on LinkedIn and finding stuff that people share. So I'm kind of thinking that growth mindset cultures is where it's at. Oh, Malin, have you gone? Oh,
I'm back again. I was gone for a moment, but I'm back again. I don't know what's happening, but sometimes the screen turns black. I'm like,
it's the Wi-Fi. It's the Marlin's abroad. Abroad, so she's dialed in from a hotel. We've got some more questions here. Hold on a second. So I think that's something to think about. I think that's
I think the learning thing is really important. I was surprised when you said that a lot of organizations or employees don't look at it as a place to learn, because remember I don't know if we were at SAP at the same time when I was responsible for the SAP community, the developers community. The top reason why people go to this community is to learn. They learn from peers, and like we were saying before, and I think this is true not for just employee advocacy, for marketing, for all disciplines. The way that things develop today is so fast. So if you wait for like a book, like a classical book to learn something, it might be too slow. When things are developing super fast, the best and most effective way to learn is to learn from other people who are ahead of the curve. And so you need to find peers, you need to identify people who are ahead of others in the discipline that you're interested in. And where do you do that? It's on social. You put, again, your opinion out there, you attract people who are also innovators, who are also ahead of the curve, who also want to learn from others, things that are not yet in a textbook that they can read. So for me, learning is a top reason to be on social and to connect with the right people, to find the right content, and to participate in the learning experience yourself by also giving back.
Yeah, go back to your comment, Michael, about using the right language, rather than change management, employee advocacy. Actually, should we be positioning this as a learning opportunity for employees? One of the top priorities is learning from others and doing learning through your network. And I think we're going to start to see much more HR professionals and L&D professionals starting to embrace advocacy as an always-on learning platform?
I think that's super smart, and I think it's even smarter than what I did. I have built a lot of my pitch around employee advocacy, around building your own brand. This is your opportunity to build your brand and your thought leadership. And then there are people who have a lot of expertise, but their goal is not to be thought leaders. Like, I don't know, I'm not sure if I want to be a thought leader. And sometimes it's like the best sellers are the ones who are not selling. And sometimes the best thought leaders are the ones who don't think that they are thought leaders, but they have so much expertise. But actually, if you position it the way that you did, around learning, around giving back, educating others, what do? You build thought leadership, but you position it in a way that feels maybe more meaningful also for people.
Yeah, we see this a lot in advocacy data as well. Employees are much more likely to share through an advocacy platform their peer content, employee generated content. That's the second time I've managed. I think we need to do a live on that actually, because we've not talked about that, but it so is. I'm going to pick up on a comment here from Amy. We're looking, I like this, Amy. We're looking to have change champions around the business. So before opening up an internal forum for FAQs around change management, to encourage conversation around the topic and best practice from around the company, change champions.
I love that.
This is your ambassador network. It's the ambassador network in Microsoft. This is what you were talking about, Malin.
Yep.
About, social superstars, spotlight people, whatever you want to call them. Absolutely the right way to do it, Amy, especially if you want to scale it. So Lucy, you need to find your change champions, the ones that are already doing it. Whatever we go here. Completely agree. Lee says LinkedIn is actually probably my #1 learning platform, and I learn something from it every day. I do. Yeah. I do. Yesterday was McKinsey's top 6 CIO priorities for the year ahead. It becomes a learning place, and I think this, when we talk about change management, growth cultures, growth mindset, it is all connected, isn't it? It is all connected. Definitely. And I just wonder, for organizations where culturally they're not embracing that growth mindset yet, and they don't, are they going to struggle to implement advocacy?
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
I think so. Yeah, I think that they might. It will be harder, and you might have to focus more on the low threshold parts of the journey to get people started, and to help people get their feet wet and experience those moments of success that might then in parallel influence the culture to support more of taking the next steps on the employee advocacy journey. But I think it will be, maybe the stair will have smaller and more steps, as opposed to organizations that already have embraced this growth mindset. They might have bigger steps that you can take faster.
Yeah, so anybody listening to this that has an internal stakeholder network, including leaders that you're trying to pitch this to and build a business case for, consider bringing in L&D and HR earlier on in this process, because they may have some weight at the table. We only have a few minutes left, because we've got about 7 minutes left. So I'm going to ask you 2 more questions. Can employee advocacy improve workplace culture, do you think?
Yeah, I think totally. If done right, that's the big disclaimer. If it's done right, then it creates network. So
she's gone. You've gone, Malin. Come back, or is it me that's gone? Because someone put a message on. Just check if it's my Wi-Fi or if it's Malin.
I'm back.
Oh, you're there.
Yes.
Yeah, you're there.
It's only a few seconds, but it adds to the excitement, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's like, hold on a minute, she's frozen.
Exactly. No, I was saying definitely it can improve culture if it's done right, because you invest in networking, you make connections within the company and beyond. You're connecting people who have a shared purpose, a shared passion. You create these clusters of people who want to achieve the same thing. And you are also, I'm coming back to what we said before, you are also creating a culture where you can get inspired and learn from each other, which is really positive. And I think one last thing that I would mention when it comes to culture, social for me is a really great way to break down barriers, and also to senior leaders. You touched on it a few times, but I mean, let's face it, senior leaders, they send like bulletins or newsletters to their organizations. Not always do we read them, if we are honest. In the email, sometimes things get lost. And I find that the senior leaders who are out there on social, many of the things that they are talking about are not confidential. Of course, you cannot put confidential things on LinkedIn, but many of the things, if they want to talk about their leadership values, what they value, shine the light on the best practices that they would like to see, many of these things are not confidential. And if you communicate via social, then you also break down barriers to the rest of the organization, to the people who are working for you. I saw it when I worked for our CMO, 𝐥𝐞𝐚𝐭. You remember him, right?
Yeah, Jonathan,
He was a social CMO. It was really great. And I was like, wow, he always knows everything. Why does he know everything? It's because he's staying in touch with people on social. And I also saw that the people who were on social were closer to Jonathan because they had a more frequent exchange. They looked at what he was posting. They were commenting on his stuff, and then he was responding. He might not have responded to them on email, I don't know. But if they commented on his blog, he would definitely respond. So you can, as a senior leader, make yourself more visible, more approachable, and create better connections to your employees if you are also active on social. So I think you're breaking silos in a company, which is very important to culture, both sideways and up and down in the organization.
It's spot on, actually. And yeah, a couple of things on that. I think when you're implementing employee advocacy, I think quite often it can be, it's heavy work if you just keep going up and trying to prove a case. You do need to get senior leaders engaged early. And the best way to do that is to practically get them going on social so they can feel it, to your point, Malin.
Definitely.
Right? So it's not just, oh, look what I've done. Look what I've done. Can you see what I've done? Can I have some, actually get them part of it as well. But the social ones that are ready for it. And Jonathan was brilliant, actually.
Yeah.
It's really interesting because it just breaks down and it makes them more accessible. So to your point, I wrote that down. And I always remember at SAP, when you start building clusters or communities internally, I always remember this one, which is for like Excel nerds or something. And it was people from around the world that really loved like Excel or other different software things.
I was not in that one.
No, I wasn't. But I was fascinated by it. There were thousands in it. They were all geeking out about new formulas and stuff. You're like that, Lee. I don't know whether maybe Lee was in it. Maybe that's why he's at Microsoft now. But anyway, right. Final question before we finish. And thank you. Thank you, everyone. Oh, thanks, Amy, for letting us know we were still here because we wondered if we're just talking to the monitor. What are your tips, Malin, around the topic of my 3 stickies? Change management, advocacy, and culture, because quite often most of the people that are probably watching this are a one-man band, one-woman band that are leading this program. I know this feeling, right? Because I have been there.
Yeah.
It just feels a bit massive. The whole, how do I change the culture? How do I implement change management? How do I do this on my own? You got any tips?
Well, the first thing is to find allies. Don't do it on your own. It's really hard to do it by yourself, and it's also less fun. Find allies. Look for those advocates. Look for the people who are waiting for the things that you do, and join forces with them. Make them your co-warriors on the question, and make them part of your change management network. But I also think a couple of things to do is to actively address and try to remove the fear. And it's also very positive for the culture if we talk about failures just as much as we talk about successes. So if we also talk about things that go wrong and we show that it's also fine if things don't always go to plan, that's also a positive impact on the culture. And at the same time, it can remove fear with people who can see that, these people are still there. If you create a culture also around talking about the mistakes, that influences your culture and helps also remove the fear in and around an employee advocacy or even social selling program. So the other thing that I would recommend is to look at agile ways of working. It's also very, very powerful. It has a lot to do with trying things fast, prototyping things, experimenting with things. And sometimes that can also be an angle to get your senior leadership on board. Agile is most known for maybe development practices, coding and things like that. But it's incredibly valuable also for the fields that we are in. And if you can promote that mindset, it includes trying things fast, failing fast, learning fast, experimenting with things that don't take forever to show results. That also creates a different rhythm in and around your program. So that can be very powerful in terms of creating change agents. And Another thing that you can't do enough of is to reward and shine the light on your role models. And to your point, if you have a senior executive, if you're lucky enough to have someone who is senior in the organization who is doing this, partner up with that executive, try to drive from their organization, try to use them as an example, but really shine the light on the people who are doing it well, because that also creates a positive culture. You give people something to look for and at. This is a tip that I give to people also. Say, I don't know how to do social. I advise them to do what I did with Jonathan. I was like, I looked at Jonathan because I wanted to do social the same way as he did it. There were some other people that was like, they are tooting their horn too much. It's too much ego. It's too much. You have seen some of them too. Like, I don't want to be like them. And so then don't. But then follow the people who do it the way that you would like to do it. And then by just observing them, you will adopt the same practices, and it will be easier for you to do it in a way that is comfortable for you. Yeah. So try to shine the light on different role models so that everyone in your organization can find a role model that does social the way that they would like to do it.
Love it. So many great tips. That agile. So yeah. I know you're listening. That's something we need to explore, because I'm fascinated by that. We do some agile within our company, or agile operations, methodologies, but not to the extent I'd like to do that. So that's a great tip, Malin. Thank you. And also, it's just dawned on me, actually, Malin, you were talking about find your cohort. So if you're a one person, like just trying to chip away at change management, find your cohort. And I think that's how you and I met, Malin.
Yeah, I think so too. We're in the same cohort.
It would have been in 2010, where we were all like, there were a few of us that were like, this social thing's got legs. You, and there's, I don't know if anybody else is listening from SAP, but Chris Green, Ingeborg, Case Cardonis, Julia Atkinson, they were our buddy group. It was our hobby project to prove this thing worked. In all those early days. But anyway, so thank you so much, Malin. It's an absolute pleasure. Let's not leave it so long next time. And
yes, let's catch up again soon. We were chatting so much before we went live that we almost delayed the go live.
I know. It was like, we do have to go live, Estefano was saying. I was like, do we? Really?
No, still catching up. No, it was great. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for all the great work that you are doing. You are paving the way for all of us. So you're a real force in this area. And inspiration.
You, Malin. Oh, you're lovely. Thank you. I'll pay you for that as well. And
looking forward to that copy voucher.
Thank you so much. And Amy, to your question, the next one, we're going to do these every 2 weeks, and we're just sort of mixing the topics up. So the next one, Estefano will tell you what the next one is. I think it's social selling and solution selling and how they work together and why they're good together. So thank you, everyone. Yes, this will be turned into a podcast. We've got some recordings going on, but absolute pleasure, Malin. I didn't do any of the questions that Estefano gave me. So Estefano's, I'm sorry about that. But, it was too good a conversation not to explore. So thank you, Malin. Fantastic. And take care, everyone. Thank you for joining. Really good. Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.